wherever you are in the world. Good day, good people, good day. And welcome to Wow, Wish Only Well live television show where I am your host, SherVonne Grose, marriage and family therapist, inspirational coach, and motivational speaker. It's Wednesday, guys, and it is a wonderful, wonderful Wednesday indeed. You know what we do on Wednesdays? We come to Wow. And by Wow, I mean to wish only well all across the world. So, listen, guys, I am super excited about our segment tonight and our very special guest who is already backstage and ready to come out and get the conversation started. But you know how we do, right? We have to properly introduce her. We do justice by properly introducing her. So, let me tell you all about my special guest who is backstage, okay? So, I will tell you about my special guest, guys. So, today, I have in the studio with me the fabulous and the phenomenal Fenika Miller. Fenika is an accomplished professional and community leader with over 3 decades of experience in both private and governmental sectors. Introduced to service at a young age, Fenika is actively involved in the community. She is an inspirational leader who is able to inspire action and build coalitions of people from diverse backgrounds to implement positive social change. Fanika believes that opportunity belongs to all of us and that when equipped with the right skills, each of us possess the ability to lead change. Her advocacy centers on economic stability, educational opportunity, healthcare, and housing. In 2012, she founded New Vision MSK, a not for profit service organization committed to increasing civic responsibility and raising social awareness among women and girls, as well as to encourage diverse voices in decision making positions. Under her leadership in 2017, the organization curated and convened Black Women and Girls Advocacy Day, held annually at the state capitol, as well as led the change to establish April 30th as Black Women and Girls Awareness Day in the state of Georgia. Now, that is just a wow. Now, listen, let me tell you more about Fenika. She's going to get me because she told me not to read all of her bio, but it's so impressive. I just got to. So her vision is to live in a state and community where every woman and girl has the opportunity to lead, succeed, govern, and prosper in every area of their lives. Respected as a credible voice in the community, Fenika earns a seat at the table wherever she serves. Fenika holds an MBA from Wesleyan College and a bachelor's degree in political science from the Fort Valley State University. She is a 2014 graduate of Leadership Robbins, vice chair of the Development Authority of Warner Robins, and is a business mentor for SCORE Middle Georgia. In 2020, Fenika opened Succeed CoWork, an inclusive co-working community and entrepreneur incubator for women of color. Ooh-wee. So, guys, girls, ladies, men, boys, without further ado, let's welcome to the Wow, Wish Only Well live television show, Fenika, the phenomenal and the fabulous Fenika Miller. Hey, Fenika!
Hey. Yeah, I ain't gonna get you because I said don't read all that. Just give them the clip notes, sis. I'm gonna, as a matter of fact, over my break, I'm gonna condense. I'm gonna condense that bio. You gassing me up.
Hey, I just had to look. I said that you were fabulous and that you were phenomenal. So I had to make sure I pointed that out. And you realize that this bio does not encompass everything that you do, right?
Right.
I am so very excited to have you here in the studio with me this evening. We have a lot to talk about, and I know that the viewers are really ready to hear from you. But before I do, I had to point out the fact that you have the best of both worlds in terms of education. You were educated at a historically Black college and also a small liberal arts college for women. That's just awesome given what you do. I just had to shout that out because I too graduated from Wesleyan College. So we
Did
are
you?
yes,
All
I
right,
did.
Wesley Ann.
Yes. So I just had to check, just had to put, because Wesleyan first with women. So I had to point it out. So listen, you are a winning only woman. I've already said that. So you are just a wild woman. So listen, so let's talk about it because you do a lot of things. You say you have the New Vision MSK, the Miss Rising LLC, which I knew nothing about. See, I try to make sure I research my guests, but this is awesome. And your thing there is we all rise together. You have the beautiful workspace here in Warner Robins, Georgia, to see CoWork, where you have your saying there, better together.
Mm-hmm.
You're the state representative for Black Voters Matter. Girl, you even ran for election to the Georgia House of Representatives in 2018, and the list just goes on and on and on. But seriously, how do you do it all? What keeps you charged? Like it going? What keeps you charged and going?
You know, the thing that keeps me going is purpose.
Yeah.
My favorite scripture is Second Timothy, and it says, "Guard the deposit entrusted to you."
Wow.
And when I was 14 years old, I had the opportunity to work on my very first campaign and really see how politics and representation can impact communities. And
Mhm.
I bought in, and I've been serving ever since. And so I think that from that very moment, everything that I've done, whether it was, community organizing, running for office, starting a nonprofit, working in this space, the co-working space, has all been the culmination of my life's work and that pinnacle experience that pushed me into this space.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me about how is it now? The MSK vision, that's something that you do with young females, correct? Young girls.
Yes.
It's like a mentorship program,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I started New Vision MSK. I ran for office in 2010. That was my first time running.
Oh
I
wow.
ran against a 6-term Black male Republican incumbent to represent the northern and middle part of Warner Robins. At that time, the district represented all of Alberta, all the way down to Fagan Mill. So the primarily Black area of the community. I came within 3 points of flipping that seat.
Oh my
First
goodness.
time, girl, I didn't know what I was doing, but I said our community deserves better. But after that run, and I always say it's never a loss, it's always a learn,
Mhm.
right? I looked around and I saw at that time there was only one Black woman in elected office.
Okay.
It was the height of the healthcare debate, the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, and Black women were facing some of the highest health disparities in the state of Georgia. And so I founded New Vision MSK. We held a minority health awareness luncheon to begin having a conversation with adult women about how policy impacts their lives. And then in 2014, we launched the leadership development program for girls that really catapulted us, which pushed us into more of an advocacy space, putting them in the rooms with their elected officials, teaching Black girls how to advocate for themselves, taking them to the Capitol, to London on international trips, and putting them in spaces where they can see and shape global policy. Um, yeah, so that's how we got started with that.
Wow.
Healthcare policy, Black women's health disparities, and teaching women and girls how policy affected their lives.
Oh my goodness, that's just awesome. I mean, just totally phenomenal that you started that program to be able to advocate for our young Black children because they need to be able to experience and learn early
Mhm,
about politics and advocacy.
mhm,
And to see other strong Black women
mhm.
in this kind of work. So I commend you. Um,
Yeah.
so then you came up with the Mist Rising, or what's that before? MIST Rising LLC.
It was after. So mist is, it goes back to another scripture, Genesis 2, where God looked around and he saw that everything was made and everything was perfect.
Mm,
But it wasn't producing because there had not been a rain. And he
mhm,
caused a mist to rise from the ground. And I look at that, the mist rising, as women like yourself, me, other mentors, my mentors, who, our girls are perfect the way that they are, but they need
yes.
nourishment.
Yeah.
They need someone to pour into them so that they
Mhm.
can produce the fruit that they are designed to produce. So that's where Miss Rising came from. And that is a business, it's a consultancy firm that houses Succeed CoWork. We focus on community development and revitalization and moving women into self-sufficient women. We can nonprofit ourselves only so much, right? For
Right.
service, but we have to build sustainable models, sustainable programs, and that takes complete transformation sometimes of our mindset, but
Mhm.
also a deep pouring into so that folks can produce and bloom.
Wow, I just love it because what you just said was so impactful and so profound. Because I think as blacks in general, but particularly young black girls who then come and become black women, I think
Mhm.
it's important for us to instill in them that they are enough, right? Because that's a big struggle. Because what we
Mhm.
see seems to indicate that we're not enough, right? It
Yeah.
seems that we have to, go overboard in terms of having to prove ourselves. And I know that this is probably a very difficult conversation for people to hear. People are probably
Mhm.
nervous about we're having this conversation, but this is what has to happen. Sometimes we
Mhm.
have to get in these spaces and we have to have realistic conversations. We have to have
Mhm.
the difficult conversations. We have to have the uncomfortable conversation because look, even the Bible talks about wisdom, right?
Yes.
And if we're
Mhm.
not going to be productive and teaching that wisdom,
Mhm.
being able, how will people know if we're not having these kinds of conversations?
Mhm. Mhm.
So, yeah. So, and I know that this is a Christian network, and I know that people oftentimes states about the separation between church and state, which that's a
Mhm.
big misinterpretation, really,
Mhm.
of that that part of the Constitution where people say that. But look, again, I don't know other place than to have, because as you know, religion has always played a big part in African
Mhm.
American families, and
Yes.
so what better
Mhm.
way to have these
Girl.
conversations than
Mhm.
right
To
here?
our benefit and our detriment sometimes, the religiosity
Yes,
of it, right?
yes,
And
yes.
we get so rigid, but okay, I'm gonna let you go ahead now. I ain't gonna, I'm
No, we're going to take this conversation because listen, I think it's important for people to understand. Now, you are the state representative here in Georgia for Black Voters Matters,
Mhm.
and so I want to open up for you to just talk with us about why it is that Black voters matter. And then, of course, I do want to talk about that Roe versus Wade thing,
Mhm.
because I think that it is something that's been on the minds of a lot of people and a lot of women,
Mhm.
but people just haven't felt comfortable, particularly Black women haven't felt comfortable about talking about that and what
Mhm.
that actually means.
Mhm.
So take the floor from there.
Yeah. So I'm the senior state organizing manager for Black Voters Matter. Um, as I shared earlier, I started doing organizing and activism work when I was 14. And so I was doing this work in my purpose for free for 20, 30 years before I landed in this space.
Mhm.
Um, I was a partner with Black Voters Matter, which means that, my nonprofit New Vision MSK, we were doing work in the ground. They noticed us and they began to invest and support. Black Voters Matter was founded in 2016 by my bosses, the baddest bosses in the land, Latasha Brown and Cliff Albright.
Right.
I don't know if you all remember the election in Alabama with I forget the senator's name, but he was running against a white supremacist, basically. And Latasha and Cliff got their foundation in Selma, so they raised $200,000 in 10 days.
Wow.
They started re-granting that money to grassroots activists and organizers who were trying to get out the vote for that election. Senator Doug Jones, that's his name. It was Black women in the church, right?
Mhm.
Going through the phone book, calling all their church members, making sure they know they had to get out to vote. It was folks driving people to the polls, picking them up, using their own money. And so they started investing in them, giving them a stipend for gas cards, right? A stipend to make phone calls, buying food so that when they're at the church making calls or whatever, that they have something to eat, right? Making sure that folks had water and snacks, if they were standing in line or if they were out knocking on doors. That is how Black Voters Matter got founded. And I remember after that election, meeting Cliff at a church in Macon, me and my other mentor, Danny Foster, who's passed on now. And he talked about the model of Black Voters Matter, that we're a capacity and power building organization, committed to expanding Black voter engagement and increasing Black political power. We believe that Black voters matter everywhere, not just in urban areas and in Atlanta, but in rural areas and small communities and towns that candidates, elected officials, political parties, and organizations often ignore. To date, we have a footprint in, we have a 50-state strategy, 12 states with a me in them. And in Georgia, we've expanded to 75 counties with 130 grassroots partners on the ground. And we are doing the work to transform our state, change the narrative that marginalizes Black folks. I say to people all the time, we are the work, y'all.
Right.
We are the work. And we're doing it by centering Black love, Black culture, and Black-led organizing.
Oh, I love it. I love it so much because I think that we underestimate our value, or we underestimate our power that we have by showing up at the polls, not just for the major election like the presidential election, but for all elections. And so, of course, I want to utilize my platform to make a difference, regardless of who may be offended or get upset about it. It's just I want to give the opportunity for information to be put out there.
Well, and offense is contrary to the word now. Offense is contrary to the word, church folks.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
We have to have a space to have conversation and be able to move to come to consensus whether we agree or not. Right.
Exactly.
So, our beliefs are our beliefs, but operating in a spirit of love and being receptive to learning and to hearing other people's perspectives, whether we agree or not. That's biblical.
Yes, exactly. Oh, I just love it. Oh my goodness. So listen, so I know that I had when I reached out to you the other day and I shared, I was like, I think that we need to get on here and have conversations about what it means, because I'm not even for sure if people really know what Roe versus Wade was all about and what it means now that it's been, overturned. The Supreme Court has overturned it. So I wanted to bring that out to the forefront so that we could have a discussion around that. And viewers, please, by all means, you can comment. If you have a question or you have something that you would like to share, I am able to see those comments and we can read them while we're actually on live. So, Fenika, again, I turn the floor over to you.
Yeah. So let's see. Well, it started with that leaked draft, right? Dobbs versus Jackson. I think it's Jackson Women's Health Center or something. But we saw maybe about a few weeks ago where there was a leaked draft, the first time that had ever happened. But the case is a challenge to Mississippi's abortion ban. That state only has, I think, one reproductive health care center in the state. And that abortion ban asked the state to overturn Roe. And, the draft showed that at least 5 of the justices were willing to do that. That draft was, just an opinion. But the language in it was just, outrageous and irresponsible, because people have relied on, the right to reproductive health and abortion for 50 years. So, what we saw from the court last week in overturning Roe versus Wade has taken folks to the streets. It creates a legal and constitutional crisis that will really impact everyone, and particularly Black people and Black women. As you mentioned at the top of the call, Black people, we are deeply spiritual, deeply religious. And I think people don't give us enough credit when I tell them, Black people are some of the most conservative folks that you are going to ever come in contact with, right? We love our children, right? We are spiritual. We up in these churches. All Black people, we're not a monolith. And so it's even a divisive issue within our own culture, right? My challenge to folks is that it's not just about abortion. It is about healthcare.
Thank you.
I reflect back on how I founded you know, made my entry point into the nonprofit space on advocacy around the health disparities that are impacting Black women,
Mhm.
right? Where Black women are literally dying to have children.
Yes, yes. I don't think people realize that.
Yes, yes. You know, it's an economic and a health impact, and that falls squarely on black folks, and on the shoulders. In Georgia, we have, I think, 75 counties, up to 90, that don't even have an OBGYN. Rural hospitals have closed. We saw Governor Kemp just this week say that they were going to expedite and reevaluate the heartbeat bill, which means that at the time that a person can determine the heartbeat, um, it is against the law to have an abortion, right? Most people don't even find out that they are pregnant for 4 to 6 weeks.
Mhm.
Um, and for me, as a Black woman who has experienced, I started having ovarian cysts when I was in high school, didn't know what in the world was going on. I
Mhm.
struggled with fibroids for the majority of my life, endometriosis. I had a miscarriage at 5 months and had to have a D&C, right? And had I not had access to reproductive care, I would have been forced to continue carrying to term a stillborn child.
Mhm.
Black women are dying disproportionately from maternal health issues, not just up to the point of birth, but after giving birth, up to 12 months after, you're still under a medical professional's care and subject to die, greater greater numbers than women of other demographics. So, you know, this ruling has some real consequences behind it. And again, it's directly going to impact Black and Brown communities.
Wow. So powerful that you said, that you shared that information and you pointed out the fact that it was just not about abortion because that's what we hear. That's what we're hearing. People are
Mhm.
saying and people are giving, their opinions about it. And some
Mhm.
have even found, wanting to, make this a biblical thing. And, but this is my one thing that I would say in reference to that.
Mhm.
Because first of all, I'm not saying that I'm all for it, but
Mhm.
I am saying that I'm for people having a choice, right?
Mhm.
And that is biblical if you want to
Mhm.
get down to it, because God gives us free will. So
Mhm.
that means that we have a choice. We
Mhm.
can choose right or we can choose wrong, right?
Mhm.
He doesn't force himself upon us. He doesn't force his will on us, right?
Mhm.
He makes it available to us, all who
Mhm.
wants to be able to receive it, right?
Mhm.
So
Come
if
on.
I make that choice that
Mhm.
I no longer want to carry a child, right? And because I've heard people say, but it's committing murder, but so do
Mhm.
guns. And we're not changing that. We're not
Mhm.
trying to change that, right? There
Mhm.
are other ways in which we're committing sin, right?
Mhm.
And we're not trying to cover that up. We're not trying to
Address that.
right address that
Mhm.
in biblical terms. So
Mhm.
I say to that, sin is sin, right? We've
Mhm.
all fallen short of God's glory because of sin. We are in a sinful nature. And so I thought that I needed to bring that out because I saw somebody said, God says, who am I to have an opinion about what it is? Well, yeah, you actually
Mhm.
can, because you actually do, so that's my thing. Like, okay,
Mhm.
we have rights, and we have rights for a reason, and we
Mhm.
expect for those rights to be upheld by
Mhm.
the highest court in the land, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And he's given us the power of his spirit that is
Right,
within us, right? But we
right,
also have a soul, which is our
right.
human emotion, our
Yes,
human reasoning. I
right,
love scripture that also says, when the angel came to Mary and told her that she's going to carry a son or a child, and
right,
she was reasoning and struggling with that thing. And at the bottom, it says, my spirit and my soul agree,
right.
right? So
Mhm.
we have the right to free will that is God given to us.
Right. Yes.
And the Constitution and our courts have said that there should be separation of church and state. Because
Right.
although I'm a Christian and a believer, right, and
Right.
you are,
Right.
everyone doesn't espouse to my faith.
Right. Exactly. Right.
right?
Exactly.
We have people that practice differently to get to the same point.
Yes.
And so yeah.
Yeah. So I appreciate you for coming on and just having this really real conversation, because I think it was one that needed to be had. And I think that people didn't really, I don't know if it was that they didn't see it as serious,
Mhm.
or if we just continue to go about our daily routines as if nothing has happened, or if it hasn't affected us. I
Mhm.
don't know. I'm still struggling to understand whether or not that's just fear. Um, Sometimes I know that it's easier just to act like something didn't happen, because it's a way
Mhm.
we for so long, that's how we kind of cope with things. So
Mhm.
I don't know, but it was kind of disturbing to me that I continue to see post after post, and I'm just going to say it,
Mhm.
foolishness. Like,
Mhm.
and it just seemed to not be, we were too busy posting pictures of us being glamorous and living this
Mhm.
luxurious lifestyle. We all on vacation. And
Mhm.
there's nothing wrong with that, because I have my moments when I like to do that too, but I saw
Mhm.
nothing.
Yeah.
In reference to that. And so what I wanted to do was bring it out, because I don't want people to be afraid to talk about, for people to
Mhm.
be afraid to voice their opinion, because there's always going to be somebody that's going to be a yay or a nay,
Mhm.
somebody that always has something to just kind of say, want to be critical or criticize something that you've done, or that you've said. And so a lot of times that hushes people. People tend to be
Mhm.
quiet, because it's like, I don't want to make any waves, right? And sometimes
Mhm.
even we fear that it might cause problems on our jobs. Like, if we
Mhm.
say this or we post this, then I don't know, my boss may not like that.
Mhm.
Maybe a
Mhm.
reason why they would get rid of me. So I wanted to just kind of bring that to the forefront, and just
Mhm.
for you to give us some insight onto why our votes matters as
Yeah.
Black people.
Yeah.
Um, and why it is, how we could be affected by what happened with Roe versus Wade.
Mm. I think even just changing the conversation, right? It's not just about abortion. It
Right.
is about healthcare in general. I mean, how
Exactly.
many of us have had to take birth control pills? Like, I took birth control pills because of my health issues,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
Before I
Mhm.
had to have a hysterectomy. But even, you know, having the ability to access birth control is on the chopping block for folks, right?
Wow.
And we're not even thinking about the repercussions and the barriers that will disproportionately harm women, our children, because of this overturning. The House Congress passed the Women's Health Protection Act, but of course, just like most of the bills that are progressive and that will help our country, they have failed to move forward in the Senate because of the filibuster. And we have been, working to press Congress and the president and everybody to overturn the filibuster for voting rights, right? And I think seeing the masses of people take to the streets over this, right? Who
Mhm.
were not in the streets over voting rights, when every single thing comes down to the power of the vote.
Wow.
We have this Supreme Court because in 2016, an overwhelming majority of folks and white women voted to put Donald John Trump into office, which ushered in, the conservative justices that now make up the majority, right? And we are living with those consequences, and those consequences are, overturning Roe versus Wade. Justice Clarence Thomas saying, that we may need to reconsider, some additional legislation, civil rights for folks, marriage equality. All of those things come down to this Supreme Court's decision, and it's just going to cause a domino effect. But we do have the power within ourselves, right, to shift the narrative that this is not just about abortion. It's a dangerous precedent, but it's also about health care, and that we have the power to transform our communities at the very lowest level, pressing our district attorneys or law enforcement agencies to not prosecute um, instances where women are seeking reproductive health care, or maybe taking, a contraceptive, right, or family planning for themselves. we can advocate in those ways, in addition to making sure that we show up to vote in November.
All right. You've heard right here on Wow Wish Only Well Live TV show with your host, SherVonne Grose, and my phenomenal special guest, Fenika Miller. Fenika, I would love to continue this conversation with you, but for now, we are out of time, guys. Time flies so fast. So, as always, we want to bid you a good evening, a wonderful weekend. Empower yourself, and you can empower yourself by starting to get the knowledge that you need that will help you to make the best informed decision. As always, we wish only well to you today and all across the world. That's it for now. Bye bye.